Today, as we continue our study of First Corinthians, we will be looking at chapter 10, verses 11 through 14. In verses 1 through 10 of this chapter, Paul reminds them of the Jewish people's unfaithfulness during the 40 years of wandering in the desert and the consequence of their sin. This provides the backdrop of where we will pick up today with verse 11. Let's read it. These things happened to them as examples and were written down as warnings for us, on whom the culmination of the ages has come. Paul reminds the Corinthians that the sins of Israel were recorded as warnings for future generations. One of the tragedies of life is repeating avoidable mistakes because we refuse to learn from history. God did not preserve these accounts merely as history lessons, but as spiritual warnings. On a personal level, parents model behavior that children emulate. Children learn how to behave from their first role models, their parents. Admittedly, every parent is not perfect, and we all make many mistakes. Some of things that we model for our children are good, some not so good. I'm sure each of you could look back on your own experience with your parents. Some of the things you saw in your parents, you also see in yourself. And there are some things that you saw in our parents that were not good. But unfortunately, there are things that were not good. And each of us need to try and learn from their mistakes and try not repeat them. Generational sin can be a problem if children fail to learn from the mistakes of their parents. Sometimes children repeat the very mistakes they watched destroy their parents: financial irresponsibility, addiction, anger, or broken relationships. We see this generational sin in a number of Bible characters. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were all deceitful. David's sin had an impact on his children, and it negatively affected subsequent generations. Paul is reminding the Corinthian church and us that we need to learn from the mistakes of others and not follow their example. Let's continue reading verse 12. So, if you think you are standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. The Corinthians believed they were spiritually mature and untouchable. Paul warns them that confidence in self is dangerous. Peter succumbed to this problem. He was overconfident. He told the Lord, "Lord, I am ready to go with you to prison and to death." It was shortly after that he denied Jesus 3 times. Let this be a warning to us. If it happened to Peter, it can happen to us. I regularly get an email from the Christian Post, and hardly a week goes by that it doesn't have an article about another preacher who has had an affair. I would venture to say that these pastors didn't go looking to be unfaithful to their wives. Rather, they were overconfident in their ability to resist the temptation, and over time they gave into the temptation. In verse 13, Paul addresses the problem that we all face. That is temptation. He tells us, no temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind. Satan wants you to believe that you are the only one who struggles with a particular temptation. We don't need to feel isolated and that no one else has this problem. After great victory, Elijah believed he alone remained faithful. God reminded him there were thousands who had not bowed to Baal. Often believers think they are alone in their battle when many others quietly fight the same spiritual battles. Temptation in itself is not sin. Everyone is tempted. It becomes sin when we give into the temptation. With God's help, you can have victory over temptation. Let's continue reading verse 13. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. For believers, God is not going to allow you to get into a situation so tempting that you won't be able to resist giving into the temptation. God sees our struggles. He knows our weaknesses. God knows how much we can endure. He is right there with us. God doesn't abandon us when we are tempted. For example, in weight training, a spotter stands nearby while a person lifts heavy weight. The spotter may allow the lifter to strain to lift the weight, but he will not allow the weight to crush the lifter. God does not remove every burden we face, but he is faithful and he keeps temptation from destroying his children. In the story of Job, Satan could only go as far as God allowed. Even suffering and temptation remained under God's sovereign control. Let's read remainder of verse 13. But when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so that you can endure it. Paul tells us God doesn't remove every temptation that we face. Rather, he provides a way through it, a way to overcome it. The escape may be removal from the situation. The escape may be having someone you are accountable to that you can share your struggle with and who can encourage you. Sometimes the escape is enduring faithfully rather than giving in. The escape may be running from the temptation. We see this in Joseph when he was tempted by Potiphar's wife. He didn't indulge in flirting with Potiphar's wife. He didn't hang around to see what might happen. No, he got out of there as quick as possible, even to the point of leaving his cloak behind. Sometimes victory looks less like standing proudly and more like running as fast as you can. Let's finish up and look at verse 14. Therefore, my dear friends, flee from idolatry. Paul finishes this section with advice regarding idolatry. He doesn't say resist idolatry. Rather, he admonishes the Corinthians to flee from idolatry. Sometimes, when faced with temptations, the most spiritual thing to do is not stay and fight, but to run. Don't stay near things that weakens you spiritually. Stay away from things that tempt you. We often hear of houses that catch on fire. Some of you may have experienced this in your own life. Jackie's dad's house caught on fire when he was younger. It burned to the ground. Her dad had just got paid and the money was in the burning house. He could have held this in such high regard and tried to save his money, but he made the wiser decision and got out of the house as quickly as possible. He lost his money, but he saved his life. Temptation can be like that money hidden in a burning house. It is enticing, but if you make the decision to retrieve it, you do so at your own peril. We can be tempted by things that promise us wealth. We can be tempted by things that promise us prestige. We can be tempted by things that promise us pleasure. But temptation is a trap. James 1 reminds us of the source of our temptation and the consequences of giving in to that temptation. Each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. Then, after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. We are often quick to blame Satan for our sin. He does tempt us, but in most cases, the temptation originates within our mind. Like in the case of a burning building, if we tarry to try and recover our treasures, if we are consumed by our temptations and continually give in to them, then the result is death, spiritual death. We don't have to be that person who is defeated by the desires of our flesh, the temptations that we face. God has given us a way out. He has given us the Holy Spirit who can help us overcome the desires of our flesh. We can have victory over temptation.